The same arguments, the same emotional cycles, the same hurt, just wearing a different face. This isn't coincidence. It's your attachment style running your relationships for you. And until you understand the pattern, it'll keep repeating. So today, we're bringing it into the light. My name is Michael Perry, and I'm joined today by Justin Gates. And this is the new Ashla. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla Podcast, home of philosophy, spirituality, and psychology, where we help you transmute shadow work into self-mastery. Today we're diving into attachment styles, and this is something that is really gaining traction out there because we all have them. It is something that guides how our relationships work and how we show up in those relationships. And so today we're going to pick it apart, help you see the shadow, and hopefully understand yourself just a little better.
But we're not supposed to have attachments in spirituality. Isn't that what they say? Just like we're not supposed to have ego. We're supposed to destroy these things. We're supposed to have zero attachment.
Yeah, you hear a lot of those things out there where they're talking about having no attachment, but there's a difference between love and attachment. Love is unconditional, where attachment is needs disguised as persona. It's like the goal when it comes to attachment styles, and we're going to dive into them, is there's four main attachment styles. You have anxious, avoidant, disorganized, and then secure, which the goal is to get to a secure relationship and a secure attachment style. And it takes work.
Wait a minute. Are you saying there's a good attachment style? Like there's a healthy one that we should pursue and not just destroy them all together? Just throw them all out?
That is the end goal with these.
Well, good. Good, because, for many, many years, I've heard about how we should murder the ego and how we should have zero attachments and there is no emotion. Or, you know what? Yeah. Malarkey. Thank you. That's a much better word. I don't have to censor that word. Malarkey. Yeah. You guys know what I mean. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because attachment's one of those things like the ego or like emotions or like these other things where you see in really these really intellectual type spiritual places where they're like, nope, do away with it. But that's not really smart because we need ego. We just need it to work with us, right? We need attachment. As you learned in our Heaven and Hell episode, connection's important. Connection is necessary in one way or the other. Speaking of that, one of the clips from our Connection is Heaven and Disconnection is Hell episode, one of our little short videos, some guy on TikTok made it a point to tell me how wrong we were because he's an introvert and he would like to disagree. And I just said okie dokie.
Yep. Well, I think introversion is something that, you got introverts and extroverts. It's always been a thing. Right. And when it comes to introverts, there's this, we've talked about it before, where when we haven't been around people where we can fully be ourselves, it takes our energy away. Mm-hmm. And a lot of introverts I've met do struggle with that, having those connections or that experience of what it's like to be around people.
It's because they're out of balance. I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert more so than I am not, right? Yep. And I love being around you guys. I love being around certain people. Do I get wore out when I'm out in public and just kind of milling around? I do get wore out pretty fast, but I don't avoid connection.
Right.
Because I need it. Because when I don't have connection, then I start to isolate. Isolation is no bueno.
We could do a whole episode on social anxiety because I think that's really one of the big roots when it comes to that. But when we look at attachment, when it comes to attachment styles, it is more of a template that we cultivate in young age on how relationships work, how dynamics work. And it's something that most of us are completely unaware of. We might notice that, hey, maybe this behavior isn't normal, but we justify it, we find reasons for it to exist, and we keep letting our nervous system run the show, because that's what it is. It's something trained within our nervous system, whether that's to run from being in a relationship or it's to cling.
Well, and it's important that, like all things we talked about, that we talk about on the show, not to identify with these things. These are strategies. Think of them as strategies, right? They're adaptive responses or patterns that we've just fell into, good or bad, right, wrong, or indifferent, as I say, by way of feeling safe or So you're not anxious or avoidant or disorganized by nature. you learned to do those things. You learned to move that way in order to deal with the conditions that you were given. Nobody chooses this stuff. It's just kind of the cards were dealt, right? But think of these as strategies. That's what people should be kind of tuned into today. Because if you think of them like strategies, then you understand that you can fine tune these things and the things that you're doing to really work for you, right? So it's important for people to realize before we get too far into it that attachment, as I told you when we first started working together, because people know this, we've talked about this before, but attachment was really one of your big things. It was important for me to remind you that attachment they're more than your emotions. They are energetic imprints of how you learned to do things, how you learned to love or not love, right? Or how you learn to trust or not trust, and really how you learn to belong. So from our very first breath, our nervous system maps out these things, and it just, over time, they either pile up in a good way or they pile up in a bad way. Usually they pile up in a way where we don't know what to do with them, so we do this work that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't think anybody got out of childhood alive in this way. I think we all came out of it, went like, oh man, something doesn't feel right. We got to work on this. And some of us have to do more work than others. Oh,
yeah.
Because really, you could have had a shaky home life, but there was a grandma or grandpa or somebody there that kind of helped regulate that out. So it didn't really bombard you too badly for most of us, I think. There are exceptions, but we didn't really learn how to relax. We didn't really learn how to be present. We didn't really learn how to deal with inconsistencies like love or care, right?
Right. Well, and it's just this blueprint of understanding. The issue is it's not understanding. So a great example is like the avoidant in a relationship. There's this deep-seated fear of vulnerability, often because the parents were either neglectful to the child's needs or emotions, and so they learned that being vulnerable isn't safe. And they might think in their heads being vulnerable is okay in adulthood, but the minute a relationship starts getting it past the honeymoon phase and into that vulnerability area, their nervous system kicks on and tells them, I'm better off alone. They're going to reject me if I show them who I am. I'm unlovable. And they start pulling away and going into hyper independence. Or the anxious, who they had parents who were helicoptering. Their presence was not always consistent. And so they learned that they have to constantly get validation, get reassurance, constantly know they're safe in the dynamic and that their relationship's not going away. And all of these are at the same root: abandonment, neglect, self-worth. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah. Negative attachment, I guess I'll call it. There's attachments that kind of hurt us. They really are a pretty great distortion of love. Confusion, really. They create confusion and distortions of things like love, care, belonging.
Yeah.
And they come from these early times where these things were unstable. And then we start to learn to confuse anxiety for affection or fear for passion. And then we end up having a nervous system that was literally wired to factor these things in. Our bodies are super, super intelligent without our brain. Take our brain away, your body is really intelligent. It does the math for you every day, right?
Yeah.
So
that's a good way to phrase it.
Yeah. I mean, it does the measurements, and it takes notes of things. We talk a lot about our unconscious minds, where you shouldn't even joke about yourself because your subconscious doesn't know. It just knows input, and whatever the input is. This is why we learn to talk to people in a way where we try to we become impeccable with our word, because even though I'm talking to you, I'm also at the same time talking to me. So and it's important to really, really try not to say things that could hurt you too. So and your whole body system's like that. You're taking in all kinds of input that you don't even realize, and that stuff adds up, and that stuff will either add up in a good way or a bad way, or the best kind of way is in a balanced way. So,
well, it's like, I mean, again, we over-identify with our thoughts. As soon as that unconscious mind is triggered by the body, we're having these responses that are ingrained in us that repeat through our relationships, whether it's to hide our needs and try to make ourselves really small, or it's to get really defensive and angry the minute something doesn't go your way, or it's to pull away and to try to shut down. So when it comes down to it, so we're going to dive into the 4 attachment styles. We already touched base a little bit on these, but the end goal is to become securely attached. And a secure attachment is really a balance of both of the modalities of anxious and avoidant. It's being able to be comfortable with emotional closeness while also being able to have a sense of independence and self outside of the relationship. You're able to express your needs and hear others' needs without shutting down or judging or getting defensive. And
it's almost like the natural state of our beings, right?
Yeah.
What we can accomplish if we are balanced in these things.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a healthy relationship is. It's able to grow together without relying on the other person for your happiness. It's able to cultivate a sense of self within and outside of the relationship, but also able to adapt and grow within the relationship and become something new. You know, one of the things I always looked at with the avoidant is how they're always afraid to lose themselves in relationships. And it's because when you're in a relationship, you do change. You morph into someone who is different because you have this new person in your life who's a part of your mirroring, your modality. And that can be a beautiful thing if it's in a healthy context.
Yeah. Yeah. I can be close to you without losing myself. I don't have to fear of changing when I don't want to or when I don't need to.
So let's dive into these more diverse attachment styles. And we'll start with anxious. This is the one I identify the most with. It's someone who craves closeness but fears abandonment. And it's constantly trying to seek reassurance and looking for catastrophizing. There we go. Looking for anything that could go wrong.
Right. Yeah, because when there's distance, even the good kind of distance, your alarm bells go off. Danger, danger.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's constantly worrying about the person pulling away or that they're involved in things that, whether they're cheating or they're losing interest, and it's this constant clinging for more affection, more closeness.
Constantly asking, is it, are we okay? Are we okay?
What did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong? You're a little upset. What did I do wrong? Right? Because you're constantly scanning for threats. Overthinking is a really big one here.
Yeah. You know, you hear someone say something and you take the context and you're like, how did they mean it? Was there a hidden message in this?
Right. So like I'll give you examples from the peanut gallery back here. She's giggling because I think she feels like we're calling her out, but she definitely falls into this kind of pattern because if I don't text her back right away, or even if I do, even if I text her 2.8 seconds after it gets to me and I just answer the question directly, right? With like the word yes or the word no or with thank you or whatever. She starts to overthink that. She starts to infer tone.
Yep.
Infer things I didn't actually say. No, I said thank you. I appreciate you. Whatever. So, or if my face gets kind of contorted a little bit, which you guys are probably used to it now. These two have been putting up with it for a while, but my face communicates a lot. So, but it's not usually interpreted well because it's interpreted from the lens of, am I losing them? Are they going to leave me? Am I not enough? Did I do something wrong type thing?
Yeah. And, you know, there's a shadow side to this. You know, it's like, it's almost like love becomes a pursuit. Mm-hmm. It is this constant chase for closeness because the nervous system's going crazy. The thoughts are going crazy. And if I have them close, then I can feel secure. I can feel safe. And I can feel my needs are being met. And it's a very dangerous attachment style because when you can't regulate your own emotions, when you can't become whole within yourself without the other, without separation, it ruins relationships. It's chasing connection over being authentic.
Well, because you're constantly chasing certainty, which you probably have. You're just never satisfied with what you see or with how the information is being received by you. Your perspective, your perception, you know, because I mean, just again, when things are rocky, when things are unpredictable, especially love, again, you learn to, your system learns to run towards closeness. if I squeeze them hard enough, they can never leave me. I will hug them till they die, right?
Yeah.
This goes back to what we talked about before. When we've talked about attachment before, it was like, the harder you grip, the worse it gets. But that's the only way you feel safe. So, but you're right. It turns the relationships into cycles of pursuit and reassurance. Now, I'm someone who doesn't mind reassuring people. I reassure you quite often. I reassure her a lot. I don't really need a lot of reassurance in my life, right? But that doesn't mean I can't give it. I'm happy to. But, like with her, I have to tell her, listen, I'm not going to read your mind, though. If you're having a rough day and you need some extra reassurance, you need some extra touch, you need some extra whatever, you have to clue me in. You have to tell me, because I'm not going to see it all the time, because I'm not, my perspective doesn't look for this stuff for me, right? So it's really important that, she clues me in sometimes so I can give her that extra reassurance. It doesn't bother me to do that. What does it cost me? A few seconds? A few minutes?
No, exactly. When you have a partner who is anxiously attached, I mean, you got to have the boundaries, because some people can be excessive with it, but they just need that little extra reassurance, that little extra comfort. It goes miles for helping them feel safe and secure in a relationship.
Right.
And if you're a secure person, you can help them start cultivating the same type of attachment style.
Oh, yeah. Dude, she's great with boundaries now. She's really, really great with boundaries. She is. So, for her, this is what I got when I got with her, when we first started dating, and then we got married. But she's really good with boundaries now, as far as, when she sees me in here. But just like I need her to tell me when it's time to give her some extra reassurance or extra touch or whatever, like I said, I also need to tell her, listen, can you give me like an hour? Or I'm right in the middle of something. Can I have some extra time to finish this? And that establishes that boundary. But I'm also bringing her in to say, okay, now's your chance to tell me if it's not, right? So, yeah.
No, exactly. That's a perfect example for that. And if you're someone who suffers from anxious attachment, I mean, it's all about cultivating self-worth, because that's what it stems from. I don't feel worthy of love, so I'm constantly seeking validation because I can't feel it within myself. We got to learn to validate our own needs and to validate our own experiences as well as our own accomplishments. We have to see the intrinsic value that we see in everyone else, and that's what helps create internal safety. Another important thing, we talk a lot about the pause, is it's like you got to learn to soothe yourself before seeking reassurance, because when you're in that triggered state, you start feeling anxious, you start trying to look for answers and seek that validation. It can be rough sometimes.
Yeah. Well, because look, your body's remembering being abandoned, especially in her case. And if there's any slight clue, like, again, body language, tone of voice, especially if you're overthinking something you did and you may have made a mistake and now you're ruminating. Yeah. Another part of the shadow side here is that this really disguises itself as devotion or extreme loyalty. But really, when this takes it to the extreme, you're really just saying, if I don't try hard enough, they're gone. I'll lose them. But as I'm fond of saying, is it love? Is it love type thing? If you have to chase after love, and you have to constantly chase after love, and the person's you're not with someone who's more secure, who's willing to give you that extra reassurance, the extra touch, the extra kiss on the forehead, whatever, is it love? I would really reevaluate.
Yeah. Well, there's this thing called the anxious avoidant dance, and this is a common clinical issue they see, where it's the anxious person, they have this great build-up, the chemistry's there, but then the anxious person starts feeling on edge, starts seeking reassurance, the avoidant starts feeling like they're losing their independence, so they start to pull away, which makes them chase more. And it's just, and then finally they give up the chase, and then they go back seeking love, and it's this horrible dance of emotions and attachment that is so unhealthy for both parties.
Well, the thing to remember here is that genuine connection and genuine love doesn't require constant proof, and that's something that her and I have been working on a long time. It's like, the proof is in my actions, and the proof is in her actions. I can see that you love me. I can see in everything you do. in every word, in every look, every, whatever. So, you don't have to prove anything to me. I see. But really, for us, it was all about just years and years and years of building up trust and communication. It's like the whole jar of marbles thing that I showed you. I sent you a video today, earlier today. The jar of marbles. You don't build trust. It's really a jar of marbles. So every little thing you do for somebody consistently, they put one marble in a jar, right? And the more filled that jar is, the more trust they have. And then when shit hits the fan, it's like you don't even have to convince them. No, I got a full jar of marbles, dude. Let's do this. Let's get it going. So, right? So because none of this stuff happens overnight, especially when you first meet somebody or, you're in the early stages of building those relationships, dating, new friendships, new work relationships. It doesn't really matter because these dynamics, you're going to find them everywhere. Again, my example is romantic love, but it's usually not that because most of us only have one romantic partner and we have lots of other relationships. So, but we see these dynamics everywhere, don't we?
Oh, we do though. I mean, I got friends who I know when they're going through it, they give me a call. I'm always there to sit with them in the mud. But it's like also they want to spend a lot of time with me, and I got to assert those boundaries of like, hey man, I see you, I hear you. Like maybe we can get together next week if that works for you. It's allowing those boundaries, but also giving that reassurance of we're good, and I see you. I see you're going through it.
What kind of internal experience do these anxious people have?
Well, I think it's constantly wondering where they sit in other people's lives. Do you still love me? Do you still care about me? Mm-hmm. Are you still sure about this? Mm-hmm. It's this constant desire for them to prove it.
They become these emotional barometers, don't they? They're always checking the temperature.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And they get so lost in it because sometimes they get that one misreading and all of a sudden that's where everything's at. And man, it can be catastrophic. Not just for themselves, but for the relationship.
Yeah. And spiritually speaking, this attachment style really represents the soul's journey from fearful dependency to faithful trust. This is where, on the path of Ashla, we would alchemize fearful dependency on the known, even if it's a known bad thing or a hurtful thing, to having trust in the unknown, the unseen, in the potential, right?
And because trust in our own intrinsic worth.
Yes, absolutely. So the challenge is learning that these things aren't us, right? Yeah. And we can heal them. What kind of things do we focus on to heal this attachment style?
I think one of the biggest things we can do is we got to form an identity outside of the relationship. Many people jump relationship to relationship without ever fully knowing who they are or loving themselves. And I'm not saying you have to love yourself before you're in a relationship, but you do got to get to a place where you have autonomy. Because often they're looking for relationships to fill the hole that the lack of autonomy brings.
Yeah, no, it really
is. And that comes back to the self-soothing, right? It's being able to work through those emotions when they come up when you're in that relationship. Validate your worth before you go to your partner to do so. And this takes practice. This takes time. And with a good partner, they can help you work through it. Just like you did with Heather. It takes time.
One thing I did for you was I taught you how to ground yourself. Grounding is a really big one here because you really have to settle into yourself, right? Before you can start working through this stuff. To find peace within yourself, you need to learn the breath work and do the breath work that works for you. The self-talk and the reflection, meditation and mindfulness type things. Not all meditations are good for people going through this, but mindfulness for sure.
Yeah, and just being able to create a safe center within yourself through these practices.
So I think we should avoid the next attachment style.
That's great. The avoidant attachment. They're the ones who I can do it all on my own. They keep everything close to the chest, value space more than anything, independence, and constantly in control of their emotional availability. You might get those quick signs, but like I said, it starts off strong, but the minute things start getting vulnerable, the minute they start having their emotions come to the surface, it's on lockdown. I'm going to just keep this to the chest.
You're giggling. Do you feel some affinity to this one too?
This whole
do you know someone who feels an affinity to this?
She's over here giggling. I think it's her. It's important. This is that's an important thing to remind everybody. We can have different different things from different, these different things, because sometimes we go through a lot of stuff and we don't go through all of our stuff all at once. If you're 46 years old, you've had lots of time to go through lots of different things. You may even have some of these you may be very secure in, and then you might have these other things that you're still working through. This is why we always say this is an unfolding. The healing is a long process. And as you're checking things off, you might find some of these other things deeper down.
Yeah. Well, it's all about how we show up in the world, right? So, I mean, we'll get into disorganized in a bit, which is a little bit of a melding of both. But when it comes to the avoidant attachment, it is this constant need to keep everything internally, because it's safer to have it inside than it is to show any of it on the outside. They pull away if intimacy deepens. They have a very difficult time trying to rely on anyone else. It's that hyper-independence. I will take care of everything. You might delegate tasks, but nothing important enough that if they don't follow through, you will be encumbered in any way. Which I think also comes back to trust in the unknown, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty easy one for all of us, I think. We all have those, even unrelated to attachment styles. We're scared of the dark. We're scared of the unknown, most of us. Well, I think all of us at one point or another, and some of us aren't as scared of the unknown. But, that's an instinct. It's really hard to, maybe almost impossible to get rid of an instinct, but instincts are important. But so these people really will hide their heart behind their mind. They'll try to outsmart everyone. They'll try to outsmart their emotions, right?
Oh, yeah. It's much easier to analyze everything than to feel things.
Right.
It's over-intellectualizing their feelings, and that's their way to cope with it. And I think one of the things is we're unconsciously attracted to the things we lack in ourselves. And so they are drawn to the anxious attachment. It's like that vulnerability, that ability to build connection. It's like they yearn for that, but the minute they start having it pushed on them, it's like, this is not safe. I need to just keep in my mind. I need to be more rational. And it's like, if there could just be a balance of both, which is what secure attachment is. The weakness of the other is strength in the one, and the blind spot of the other is the strength of the other.
And they seem really cold, but they're not. They're just super overly cautious. It's a really obvious form of self-protection. They just flat out avoid things. Flat out avoid people. Flat out avoid talking about things that are important. Communication is really tough. Because they will say, hey, no, I just really value my space. I'm just really, really independent.
Yep.
And they really cut you off emotionally sometimes. When you really get too close, they get freaked out.
Yeah, I know. It's like you see all these narcissist communities out there, and so many of them are just dealing with avoidance who do not know how to be vulnerable, to be intimate, to be close. And I'll say withholding is one of the worst forms of abuse. Withholding emotions, withholding intimacy, stuff like that. That can do a lot of damage to somebody. But it's this defense mechanism because closeness isn't safe. In fact, I'd even say that's really what the shadow side of this is it's closeness feels like a threat. So distance becomes safety.
Yeah. If I get myself to a point where I don't need you, then you can't hurt me.
Yeah.
You can't hurt me. Yeah. And they build walls instead of bridges. They build prisons instead of bridges.
Yep. Well, I think an important thing to realize here is if you suffer from avoidance or you know someone who does, this isn't something consciously they do. All these attachment styles, they're patterns. They're the same relationships playing out over and over in our lives without us realizing we are the one common denominator. And these are the things that are creating these similar patterns within our relationships.
Yeah. Well, they erect these walls to feel safe, and they call them boundaries, and they call them, my boundaries are my strength. But I don't think that the deeper fear here is a fear of others or even closeness. It's having to have emotional dependency.
Yeah.
Of being seen authentically. They're not sure about their authentic selves, and they don't want to be rejected. Because even though they say they give themselves distance, they do care what people think. It really, really, a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the root, what you're saying there, it's the same for the anxious. They have the same core wound. It's just they respond to it differently. Mm-hmm. One needs to pull everything closer to feel safe, and the other one needs to keep everything at arm's length. That way they can't be hurt.
Yeah. So what kind of stuff are they going through internally?
It's that whole, if I let someone close, then I'm going to lose myself. I'm going to lose my sense of identity. I'm going to lose my independence because I'm going to become too reliant on someone. And that is the most triggering thing for them.
Yeah. Yeah. How dare you need something?
Yeah.
How dare you get close and need something and be vulnerable with people? Because for them, intimacy, they confuse or they equate intimacy with erasure. If I get too close, if I have too much dependence on this person, then our relationship's going to be erased, and then I'll be left lacking.
Yeah. Relationships become more like check boxes that you gotta check off instead of connection or intimacy.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we can start to heal from this by practicing sharing authentically, vulnerably, our feelings in small little bite-sized bits.
Yeah. Again, it's all about practice, but it's being able to be like, if you need, because often when an avoidant feels something, they don't know what's actually going on. So they'll be like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how I feel about this. And so they might need some time. And if you have a partner who's avoidant, give them that space. Yeah. Take time to reflect on it, but give them a time frame, Let me know by the end of the day, like, what happened here? What's going on? How is it something going on with us, or is it something going on in your own world?
Yeah. Yeah. Name it. We like to say that because it's true. It's one of the most powerful things we can do because it creates awareness. Name it. You don't have to explain it, though. You don't have to explain yourself to anybody, but name it. If I ask you if you're an avoidant style, and I said, Mike, what's going on? Right? And you're like, I don't want to get into it. Okay. You don't have to explain it. Name it. You're feeling overwhelmed. Okay. That's good enough. I can understand that. I can really, right? Yep. We all feel overwhelmed at times. You don't owe me an essay, right?
Right.
You just name it. And if you're by yourself, kind of get yourself to a point where you can name it. And you can say to yourself, man, I really feel overwhelmed. And that's good enough. Bite-size, little morsels, little pieces of how you're feeling.
Well, I think it's also important for avoidance to learn how to identify emotions. Because I think a lot of the time it's all about bypassing. If I can analyze what's going on, I don't need to understand. I don't need to feel the emotion that's underneath it.
Right, right. And there is such a thing as too much analyzing, too much analysis. Yeah. Over-analysis is horrible. That's why you start small. And if you can only name it in 3 syllables, I am overwhelmed. That's perfect. That's good enough. But stay physically present as best as you can, because you need to see where this stuff is sitting. And the more you can feel it, it's in your periphery. Now you can see it. Now you can feel it. Now you can, these little tiny things, right? When you're discomfort. And the reason I say stay physically present is because this will keep you from running into just distracting yourself or overworking or whatever.
Or pulling away from the connection.
Yeah.
It's one of the key things, again, with all this, both these attachment styles, is it's all about the nervous system. And it's not a matter of what's happening in the moment. Often the thing that is triggering the nervous system is things we haven't worked through from the past. Mm-hmm. And so it's like that moment you were rejected that started you being avoidant. Dig into that, whether it was your childhood, your first relationship. You got to get into those emotions and allow them to process, because they just store in the body. And every time they're activated, you got that whole emotional energy you've built up over the years that's channeling into this one moment, this one relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're with someone who's like this, or you are someone like this with a partner, allow reciprocity. Allow it. Allow each other to give to each other little bite-sized things, right? Let other people care for you and try to care for them, but do it small. Don't freak them out. Don't overwhelm them, because that's the problem here. There's just too much of this and too much of that. Start small.
Often the biggest thing you can give them is space.
Yes, right. Yeah. But if you're giving an avoider too much space, then you're not helping them at all, right? Because space is where they run off into. But don't crowd them. Don't get all crazy about it. Because they are going to run for good. So just give them just little tiny things here and there, right? And when you get to a point where you can name it and you can sit in it for however long you can, and you can allow people to trade these little things back and forth, then you can work to try and reframe it. Reframe that vulnerability. And remember that it's actually working you towards self-mastery. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're not able to be vulnerable, you're never going to allow yourself to be seen, which I think is their greatest fear. I think on both sides, they very much fear being seen for who they truly are.
Right.
And that's why the anxious person will do all they can to try to be the perfect person. The avoidance can do all they can to hide all their emotions away so they don't be seen for being weak or being wrong. And it's this fear of rejection.
Because somewhere, some asshole out there made them feel like they weren't worth a damn. But they are. They are. Take it from me. Take it from old Uncle Justin here. Right? You are. And believe me, if I could flick them in their third eye right now, I would. Because you are. Right? But we help each other go through these things little by little. Right? It took them, and the wounds may not have even taken that long to accumulate the wounds, but it took them but they've been in rumination for a really long time. So go slow, go easy. Start little. And let yourself be vulnerable too, right?
Yeah.
When there's two of you, you can do double the healing.
So let's jump into disorganized attachment. Now, this one is a mix of anxious and avoidant. I think many people fall into this category because it's this constant craving of closeness, but at the same time fears it deeply. And as much as I say that I am anxious is really the one I fall in more while being disorganized. Because once I'm in a relationship, it's hiding the needs, craving space, and it's this push-pull bounce between avoidant and anxious. And it's usually something that was developed in a young age when you were in emotionally unpredictable environments. You know, one moment your parents are hot, the next they're cold. You have no idea what's causing these changes, and slowly you're constantly trying to be small while be accommodating. Be invisible while doing just enough to get that praise.
Yeah. This push-pull dynamic is really rough because they deeply crave, like down to the bottom of their heart, they'll crave closeness, but also have an irrational fear of it at the same time.
Yeah, and often they don't know it.
Which just rips you apart, man.
Yeah.
Because your heart is reaching out like, oh, yes, that's what I want. But your nervous system's like, whoa, Nelly. Nope.
Yeah, the minute any type of sign comes up, it's like, okay, retract, don't let them see me. Yep.
Right. And then you're ruminating about that. And so the world is very unpredictable just by its nature. It feels unpredictable. There are lots of things. And I'm not just talking about our small places where we all grow up, and the whole world can feel that way already. Chaos is unfortunately is the other half of order. And we don't do a good job of learning how to deal with that, to balance that. And that's really nobody's fault, because I don't think any of us, until we do the work, right, get somewhat good at it. I don't think any of us ever master it. But
it's all about getting to that secure place where we can have faith. And part of that is being in a healthy relationship. I know for me, where that was really triggered in me, I was in a very unhealthy relationship where speaking up for myself would lead to abuse, would lead to chaos. And so I had to shut it down all the time.
Yeah.
It's like our nervous system stays in survival mode and hypervigilant mode. It's constantly scanning for the next threat.
Well, and that threat might even be calm and secure and stable love.
Yeah. I think most people who are in an attachment style don't know how to handle secure attachment because it feels boring to them. The anxious craves the avoidant because of the chase. The avoidant craves the anxious because of that feeling of energy and excitement.
Yeah.
And then you have this disorganized attachment where it's this, once I start getting close and the relationship starts building up, I start to pull away, then they pull away, and I start to chase after. It's the whole cat and mouse dynamic we hear all about.
Right.
And that's not healthy. That just ingrains more attachment, more need of the other person, even if they're hurting us.
Well, what do you expect, man, when love and fear are intertwined? And
Yeah.
This is how this happens. This is how it happens. Chaos was the rhythm of attachment for them. And the calm and peace feels really foreign. And for some, even unsafe, because we're expected that love only arrives through conflict, by fighting. This one reminds me of the Joker and Harley Quinn type dynamic, right? Which help me understand this. Why do people fantasize about that so much? They are the worst example.
It is the exact representation of a trauma bond. That is a trauma bond.
it is. I mean, love only comes through conflict, and I don't want to say necessarily abuse, but chaos and intensity or crisis. And they're like, oh my God, this is a love story. Stop it. Stop it.
It's like Romeo and Juliet, man. I was one of those people like, I want a Romeo and Juliet love. Like, why the hell would I want that?
Yeah,
that was not written as an ode to how wonderful love is. That was written to show how stupid people can be in love.
Love, because...
Yeah.
But then, because passion will mask panic for them, and these emotional highs and lows mimic the unpredictable love through their childhood, through all their early relationships. So, right? Our bodies are magnificent machines, like I said. They adapt to everything. The good stuff, the bad stuff, the stuff we shouldn't be. All of it. Just all of it. And again...
The issue is when it normalizes it, though.
Right. But, we're confusing intensity with intimacy here. Right? So you may be subconsciously, you probably are, because I don't think anybody does anything on purpose or whatever, but you're creating subconsciously instability, because that's where you thrive. That's where you're like, okay, then all right, this feels normal. This feels familiar, at least, right?
Yeah.
So
this is what love is supposed to feel like.
Right.
I mean, it's just like people who grow up in households with someone being an addict or an alcoholic, and they find themselves in relationships in their adult years where they're constantly finding partners going through that, trying to caretake, trying to save the person in addiction like they saw their parent do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what kinds of things are these folks going through internally?
It's again that whole it's both the anxious and avoid. It's like, I want you close, but once you're close, I don't feel safe, because then you might get too close to me. Right. Or I might get hurt here. And so then they push him away. And it's this constant back and forth, constant hypervigilance.
Yeah. Like a really bad game of tug of war.
Yeah.
There's definitely, one of our ethos is integrity. And integrity just doesn't mean being a good person and your word is your bond. It means being whole. It's really hard to be whole when you have one part tug of war against another part here. Because one wants to be seen, but the other one's bracing for pain, like, ugh.
It's like you have two conflicting energies inside you, almost two different personalities. We talk a lot about how these things inside of us are, when we have that split, it becomes two parts. And it's this protector part, and it's the part that wants to be safe. And so the protector part comes online anytime it gets too close to being vulnerable.
Yeah. And something else they go through, because they're at war with themselves, really, this tug of war, they will cycle through this approach and withdrawal, and then feel bad about doing it.
Yep.
Feel really bad about doing it. So then they have that on top of all of it. Like all of these, again, this is not a character flaw. It's not a weakness. It's a condition that you can overcome. Ironically, this one really feels like it's the nervous system that was trained to survive love, not be in love, but to survive love, if there is such a thing, right? It's crazy. No one should have to survive love.
Oh, I agree. And so many people do, though. It's crazy how many people out there are so convinced on what they think is love when it's really just attachment.
Yeah.
And it's this, I did a whole paper on this last semester about the difference between passionate love and companionate love. And most people see it in the movies. They're convinced that love is within passion and these emotional highs and love bombing, and they fall into the same trap over and over again.
So for the first thing we have to do to start down that road of healing here is regulate our nervous system, right? Wouldn't that be the first thing?
Yeah, it's being able to get in touch with ourselves. When we get triggered, when we start feeling the need to pull away or to cling on, it's being able to bring ourselves back to baseline, to see reality as it is. Because often our minds are starting to distort reality again. It's starting to create stories that either we're unsafe or that this isn't where we're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, grounding is very powerful here. Grounding is very powerful here. It doesn't matter if it's breath work or meditations or something you did with Saluna was kind of dip in some cold water. That's a really good one.
That's one of the most therapeutic things you can do for your nervous system.
Guess what? If you're not in the moment, you will be. I'm here. I'm present.
Exactly.
Or even gentle movement, do some Tai Chi or something. But you got to learn to teach your body that calm does not equal threat. Calm is a good thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really it, is they don't know how to be in a peaceful state. If things are going good, then something's got to be wrong. There's something they're not seeing. There's something they're not planning for. And when things are going awry, all right, now I know what to do. Let me latch on.
How powerful is building predictable routines here?
Well, I think that's one of the key steps to helping us cultivate healthier relationships, more secure relationships. Build routines within your relationship and within your lifestyle. Create that sense of autonomy outside of your relationship, but also autonomy within your relationship. Date nights, intentional time together.
Yeah.
It's vital.
Going to an event like we did.
The couples getaway with Soluna. Yeah.
Oh man, that was awesome. We're going to get them on soon, and we're going to talk about that because wow,
connection and love.
And this is interesting because, it's what I'm looking for.
Strategies? I don't think that's what you're looking for.
You guys have been married for just a short time. We've been married for much longer time. And the ceremonies and the practices were really powerful for both of us, even though we're on other, completely different sides of it here. So yeah, creating that consistency within your relationships, and especially the relationship with yourself, because you have to learn to trust.
Yeah. Including yourself. Because I think that's one of the biggest issues we run into. We start doubting our own judgments, our own opinions, our own values and wants.
Yeah. Start meeting with people regularly. People that are in your circle of trust. Even if it's just for a half hour, right? Committing to small little things. Again, we always do things bite-sized around here because that's the best way to do it. So things can unfold. Do some kind of morning ritual. Go to the ritual show and look for some things that we said there. Like hanging out with people, like I said. But just learn to create your predictable routines. That way you're in charge of them and you'll feel better about it. So, and you can start to trust that. Don't just run out and join the Peace Corps. That's probably later. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. From the Ashla's perspective, this is a pretty easy one to say that it's a conflict. It's this inner conflict between the light and the shadow within us. Energetically, psychologically. Sometimes it feels physically. We have one soul, but we have other things that we have to integrate with. We have to learn to alchemize into things that really work for us and work with us. And of course, fear is no friend to any of us. Caution, don't confuse caution with fear. True caution with fear. Caution is not stepping out in front of a moving bus. Fear is being scared of, love. So we have to learn to bring these things into harmony, and that's what we do. This is what we teach here. Is try to find that harmonious place. And it could be a 20-year endeavor or it could be 6 months. But you're going to be doing some work forever.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into how to move into secure attachment. Help people understand how to make that transitional shift from their attachment style to having a more secure baseline.
So, steps to move toward this secure attachment. But I do want to say one thing. Even though secure attachment is really our goal, right? We didn't really talk about the shadow side of this, and I think we should real quick.
Okay.
Because I think it's important, right? Because all things in extreme, not good for us, right? Even the good stuff, right? So the shadow within the secure attachment would be like overconfidence in our independence, right? Yep. And we start to withdraw instead of reaching out. You call me out on this all the time. So does she. So does some other trusted people in my circle.
Yeah.
I'm getting better. I'm getting better about reaching out. Because I see the looks you give me when I'm having a rough week. Because I'll tell you, oh man, the furnace went out, right? And you'll ask me, well, are you doing okay? How you doing? Well, I'm great, bro. I'm great.
Yep.
And you kind of give me this look like, and she'll do it too. Now, sometimes, and she's gotten really good at this, about knowing when I need a little extra prodding. Because, look, even the most secure people have shadows. We just do.
Yeah.
Because
it's so true.
We'll wear this independence like an armor, be like, I'm good. The truth is, I'll probably get through it, but I don't have to do it alone.
Right? Things are allowed to suck.
They are, and they will, and they do. And yes, you might be fine on your own from time to time, like the guy who made the comment on our TikTok video, and I just said, okie dokie, right? Because I understand where he's coming from, but, I also understand that I have shadows and so does he. And because sometimes I just want to be coddled. I want to be cuddled. I want to be fawned over.
Yeah.
Even though I may not actually truly need that, I want it sometimes, right?
I think that's human nature.
It is. It is. But like moderation in all things. That's we seek balance here. And even if you're in the good zone on this, we'll say, right? We have to remember that you don't have to do everything alone, because it's overconfidence in being super self-sufficient. And it's something in our teachings that we have this idea that we must be self-reliant. There is a precept of knighthood that dictates I am self-reliant, right? Our precept are these affirmations that hone us and sharpen us into service. But you can become overconfident in that, and I do it all the time. Her and I will tease back and forth, and she'll throw a shot at me that says, "Yeah, I know, you'll figure it out, Justin. Oh yeah, you'll get through it." I probably will, but I don't have to do it alone.
Exactly.
Because I might fall into that trap of isolation if I'm not careful. Now, I don't believe that asking for support is a weakness. In fact, I encourage the opposite. But sometimes, do I allow myself to become so overconfident in my security that I do think that I don't need anybody's help? But what I need and what I want, sometimes we have to address those. Because I don't lack love. I'm a very, very, very blessed man. I am very blessed. I have lots of people that love me and that look up to me, and I'm very proud of that. But I'm blessed in that. But sometimes I forget that I need to let people reciprocate that to me.
Exactly.
They need it too, right? So, and especially on the spiritual side of things, we talk about this a lot, how Justin is too stoic, right? This is what we're talking about. Justin gets too stoic. Or Justin gets so far, becomes so spiritual that I believe that my stability must be unshakable so that I can protect you and serve you and protect her and serve her. So again, this is kind of the shadow side of being secure. And I just kind of wanted to call myself out a little bit because, it's important for me to find that balance so that I can serve you and even myself a little better, because I don't have to suffer alone. Suffering is mandatory in life. We don't have to do it alone. So thank you for letting me.
I mean, I even wonder if you somewhat drift into the avoidant territory, the need for space, the need to handle things on your own time before you really open up about it.
Well, no, but I'm not avoiding. I'm not avoiding, and I'll just say this. But I forget that maybe I don't need help with something all the time, but I do want it. Right? This is what I'm saying. If I look too much, if I come from that too stoic of a perspective, then it's like, yeah, I can do this, right? But right. But if I get help, that gives someone else a chance to grow.
Reciprocate, yeah.
Yes. But you know what? I'll just say this. I think we all, no matter how secure we are in danger's a really rough word, but we can slip in through these all the time. Like we talk about in the narcissist show. There is kind of this quote unquote good range, but sometimes we drift off if we're not too careful. So
yeah,
but no, exactly. we should be moving toward that secure attachment style. That's what our teachings give. That's what most spiritual teachings try to provide. That's what most counselors and coaches and doctors are trying to get us into a place of, right? So how do we start to move towards that better spot?
Well, one common theme we had throughout all the different attachment styles, it's understanding the nervous system and how it responds and what that makes you think. Mm-hmm. So it shifts you into your survival instincts, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And these are very specific to these different attachment styles. If you're more anxious, you probably tend to lean more into the fight or the fawn mode because your way of connection is instant. I need to have this conversation now. I need to appease now to get that closure. Next to someone who's an avoidant probably falls more along the lines of freeze or flight. I'm not safe right now. My emotions shut down. My mind shuts down with it. Or flight, where they just want to get away because it's easier to run away from a situation than to be vulnerable.
And there's no get this out of your mind right now. There's no perfection. There's no perfect way to do this. You'll never be perfectly secure, ever. So remove the perfect part out of this healing, out of this unfolding. It's about cultivating awareness, as you said. Yeah. It's about learning self-trust, little by little by little.
Yeah, and retraining the nervous system.
And having emotional honesty with yourself. But, and I go back to grounding again. And the pause is really a grounding technique at the end of the day. Because you're bringing yourself back to center, back to present, right? And the best way to start doing this is to try and create a grounded presence. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we're trying to respond, not react. As you said, becoming aware of those triggers and taking them on one at a time. But it starts there. You're right. It starts at the nervous system, because that's where all this stuff is stored.
Right. Well, that pause right there, I want to go over it just in case someone listening hasn't heard us talk about it before. It is the pause between reaction and response. Not reaction and response, to the sensation and the response. When the nervous system triggers, we automatically want to react a certain way. But if we pause and take a minute to realize, to listen to our bodies and what's going on in us, we can start to bring ourselves back to baseline, to turn off those survival instincts that are trying to run the show, so you can have productive conversations. You can act from a place of authenticity and not fear.
Yeah, exactly. Awareness and awareness here creates that space between reaction and response. So sometimes as we have to stop. The more you do this, the less often you have to kind of slam on your brakes. But if you have to slam on your brakes, do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
If you're with a good partner, they'll be able to give you that space to calm the hell down and come to a conversation.
But don't tell them to calm down.
Yeah.
You can tell them to calm down. It just never works.
Another big area is to learn to trust yourself more, as well as to trust others. Often if you're anxious, you struggle with a lot of self-trust. Again, how sort of they mirror one another. One has an abundance, the other's lacking. The anxious person knows how to trust to a fault, while the avoidant knows how to trust themselves over anyone else to a fault. Yeah. And it's learning the balance here. We got to learn how to, one, trust people to keep their promises, but also keep promises to ourselves.
This goes back to the jar of marbles. One little thing at a time.
Yeah. Trust isn't something you should hand out freely. It's something that should be cultivated with that jar of marbles. They let people show up consistently before you give them your trust.
And you show up for yourself consistently too. Every time you keep a small little promise to yourself, like going to bed when you said you did, or eating when you're hungry, speaking when you need to, you start marble by marble, you start to build that trust. And you allow others to gain your trust little by little too. My kids were always really good about saying, listen, trust is earned. And I never actually outwardly taught them that. They're really good at understanding this, and they kind of understand the marble thing too. The marble thing is something I learned just, last year or something. But right, little by little, and that applies to yourself and to others. So like in everything we do, we talk about these little micro moments that really become empowered when you put action and follow through with it, right?
Yeah.
So you got to stop outsourcing your stability to others and to your fears and to the things, to your shadows. You have to start embodying these things little by little. So one thing you can do to build some self-trust, look up the marble thing. If you guys don't know what that is, it'll blow your mind, because it's such a simple concept, but it's really powerful. But another thing,
Brene Brown's interview with Diary with the CEO.
There you go. It's something that she teaches too. You might even be able to find her whole system. So another thing you do is write down one little promise to yourself, one a week if that's enough for you, right? And then move on to once a day, but just something tiny. Write a promise to yourself and then follow through. But make sure it's small and achievable.
I was one of my greatest weaknesses. I always wanted to promise myself the world, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And it would be all these giant promises to myself, and I never developed actual self-trust. The biggest change I ever made in my life is when I started making small promises to myself that I could follow through on. I stopped promising the world and I started promising the steps.
And something we always talk about, we've done 2 or 3 episodes on it, clear communication.
Yeah, mandatory. Learn to express your needs. Whether it's I need a moment to ground myself, I need a little space so I can be with myself because that's what I like to have. Or I need some reassurance right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Transparency is a very powerful tool to learn to be vulnerable, because you're replacing this guessing game and this mind reading of each other with honest communication. I need this. I need that. There was something that I sent to Heather today, and I'll send it to you too. There were 5 questions that you should ask your partner, and they might be, a couple of the questions were pretty tough. Like one of them was like, what don't we argue about that we should be, right? Because that gives you like an inroads to, what am I doing that's annoying the crap out of you that we don't?
No, I like that.
Right? So that was just one of them. Clear communication. It's really, really important. And you should feel safe to say, listen, man, I'm feeling overwhelmed here. I need a moment. I need a minute. Or like I was talking about earlier, she'll give me a hint that she needs reassurance, and I'll ask her, what is it you really need? Exactly. Tell me right now, perfectly, exactly. I have a thick skull. I need you to spell it out for me so that I can meet your needs. Or like, no, I need a little bit of space. I need some space, but I'm not leaving. Don't freak out. But I need to separate for just a minute so I can get figured out, because I am starting to go into a place that's not good for you or me, right?
Yeah.
Because we all get angry, we all get annoyed, we all get, and for someone, and this goes back to being in that secure. If you have a secure attachment, again, yeah, you're in the green, but you really have more responsibility to help move things, help guide things, you got to be a little more extra patient. You have to be, but you don't have to be a mind reader. You should never have to be a mind reader, and just build that trust with, she trusts me with her life. But we've had a lot of, she's filled that jar with a lot of marbles over the years. Do you think she trusted me as much as she does now? Our first 5 years together, even? Nope. Because really, it's only been the last 3 that I've finally gotten her enough to trust me to help her start healing. So, and that's nothing on her, right? Wow, it took her 20 years to finally trust you? No, but it took her 20 years to finally say, okay, it's time to heal. So communication is really, really key in that. And communication with yourself too, Michael.
Yeah.
It's really super important.
Well, you got to be able to identify your own needs. And I think all these styles really struggle with this because, again, it comes from a worthiness wound. So often, even though we have needs, we don't feel worthy of our needs being met. So we'll shove it under. We'll disguise it. We'll do what we can to avoid looking at it. But if we can be clear and direct instead of passive aggressive or trying to manipulate the situation or to drop those subtle hints, because I know I'm one of those. I'm like, you dropping hints on me, I'm probably not going to hear what you're trying to tell me. Be direct with me and I can give you what you need. Yeah. And sometimes that does take space for them to articulate it and figure out what they need, but communication. Yeah.
Choosing relationships that match what you need, match your healing. This might be the toughest one of all of them, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Well, again, it's like impossible. I mean, it's nearly impossible to build a security in chaos.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you're constantly chasing, if you're an anxious person, you're constantly chasing avoidance. You're constantly triggering the same wounds, feeling the same emotions, and it leads to more and more helplessness. Like, I think for people who are struggling heavily with an attachment style, finding a secure base is the best thing you can do for yourself, because you can start cultivating the skills. You can start learning how to regulate your system. You can be validated without being shamed or shunned. And you can, or if you're on the avoidance side, you can have that space without feeling like your autonomy is being threatened or the relationship is.
You can truly love someone as deep as you can, but still recognize that the environment that you're in is not good for healing or growth, right?
Yeah, we grow faster in environments that are consistent, honest, and emotionally stable.
Yeah. And then through that process, you learn to give that to others. And it doesn't have to be again, romantic relationships. It doesn't have to be marriage or whatever. Relationships exist at every single level of our lives. No matter where we're at, we have relationships with people.
Yeah, we can't run from it, can't clean on it. We got to
Yeah.
learn to be autonomous while also vulnerable, and that is so difficult without having a good circle to build that with.
Yeah. And one practice you can do is start thinking about the interactions you have. And again, start small. But really ask yourself an honest question. Did this connection expand my peace and stillness, or did it take it away? Was it more painful than healing? You have to ask yourself these things honestly. And again, your body will always know before your mind will. You'll feel it. So that's why we always say start with the body and learn to sit in your body to feel these things.
It's important to remember, you are not your attachment style. You are the awareness that is choosing to heal it. Mm-hmm. Security is something that is built. It's not something that you just flip a switch and you have it, or you can just get it right off the bat. It's something that has to be cultivated through consistency and through the struggle, the ups and downs within yourself.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to reach out to professionals. Ever.
Again, I'm a big believer everyone needs a little therapy. I think therapy can do so much for anyone going through anything at any point in their lives. We got our blinders up, and we always tend to look the other way when we have our own internal struggles going on because the world's so busy.
Hanging out with you two is therapy enough for me. I'm just kidding.
Do you have any closing thoughts before we get to the rest?
I do. So when it comes to healing, as always, you are not too much. You are not too needy. You are not unlovable, period. You simply learn to survive things in a really chaotic and unsafe places. And this is not blame. Don't be ashamed. Don't blame. It's time to lock in though, right? Because the work is not to shame your patterns or to blame them on someone else, but to retrain your nervous system and learn to reopen your heart to love. That doesn't require chasing, suffering, is conditional, right? And one thing I forgot to point out earlier, secure attachment is not some kind of personality type. It is the fruit of consistent self-trust, honesty, self-love. So every time you pause instead of react, you reclaim a little bit of power. Every time you speak your truth instead of performing or faking, you start to restore your integrity. Every time you stay grounded in the present moment, instead of just falling back into those old wounds, you start to shine a light on your shadow and you start to learn how to make peace with it. And of course, our path teaches us that healing is not perfection. It's presence. Say it with me, Michael. Presence over perfection, right? Every time. If you can nail presence over perfection, you are on your way. You are on your way to self-mastery. Because when you choose awareness over autopilot, honesty over performance, and love over fear, you realign yourself with the source of everything around you. And also remember, you're not lost or broken. You just forgot. It's time to remember, right? It's time to remember. So this week, pay attention to your body and the signals in moments of closeness or conflict or whatever it is your attachment style is putting in front of you, See if your chest tightens or your heart races. And if it does, pause, sit with it. And you can tell yourself, I am safe. I'm safe to love. I'm safe to be loved. Then again, take your little bite-sized small steps towards either its connection or self-love or whatever the thing may be, right? So, because being secure in love is not something you find. For a lot of us, it's something that we become for others and for ourselves. So that's where I leave it today. I luch 'em.